The courtyard of the University of Lagos was bright with sun, filled with colorful jewel, proud suits, flashing cameras, and the ringing of talking drums. Graduates in black gowns lined the stage, caps tilted, tassels swaying like tiny pendulums of hope. When the MC called for family to join each graduate for the official photograph, a hush moved across the front rows like wind through tall grass. Chief Oladipo Adeyemi, real estate tycoon, age 56, deep ebony skin, a trimmed salt and pepper beard, bald crown under an ivory fila cap, rose from his VIP seat. His agbada was pure ivory with gold embroidery at the neck and sleeves. He walked with the slow confidence of a man who believed the whole city should make way. His perfume floated ahead of him, expensive and heavy. He climbed the steps toward his only child. Zainab Adeyemi stood center stage in a black graduation gown with a green sash. Under her cap, neat box braids sat in a low bun. Her skin was deep brown and clear. She wore small gold studs, low black heels, and, beneath the gown, an Ankara dress patterned with tiny cowrie shells. 22 years old, top of her class. The sun caught the corner of her eyes and made them look like wet glass. The MC smiled. "Congratulations, Miss Adeyemi. Please, with your father." Hundreds watched. Phones lifted. The school band paused. A photographer knelt, ready to capture the perfect picture of a powerful man and his brilliant daughter. Zainab took one step back, then another. She reached for the stage microphone, fingers steady but slow, like she was lifting a pot of boiling water, careful not to spill the truth. The microphone caught the small tremor of her breath. "Good afternoon," she said, voice soft but clear. "With respect to this school, to my teachers, and to every parent here, I cannot stand next to this man." A ripple of surprise ran through the crowd. Chief Oladipo froze. His smile did not know where to go. It sat on his face like a visitor who had missed the bus. Zainab cleared her throat. "Years ago," she said, "he maltreated my mother until she almost lost her life and her mind. He turned our home into a place of fear. Today I am grateful to God and to my mother. But I will not, I repeat, I will not pretend here." For a breath, Lagos went silent. The big man in the ivory agbada swallowed. His lips trembled. He tried to speak, but his voice split like dry wood. He covered his face with one wide palm, then another. His shoulders shook. A sound came from him that people do not expect from a man who owns towers. An old, raw cry. Phones recorded. Aunties gasped. Some people stood up. Others sat harder, as if their chairs would run. The MC reached for the mic, confused. Security glanced left and right. Up in the second row, a woman in a simple lilac gel, Ankara wrapper, and gray blouse pressed her hands together. She had warm, cocoa brown skin, fine lines at the eyes, and cornrows under the gel. A faded scar crossed her left forearm like a dry riverbed. Her name was Amina Lawal, 48, seamstress, mother. Zainab lifted her chin, eyes shining hot. "I am going to choose who stands beside me," she said, and the crowd leaned forward, hearts stamping like feet on festival ground. Cut. The cliffhanger hung in the air, as sharp as a knife above ripe fruit. Weeks earlier, the city had been softer. Rains came and went. In Agege, where Amina rented a small single-room shop, the smell of starch and new fabric filled the days. Spools of thread, indigo, tomato red, mustard, leaf green, lined a wooden shelf like soldiers in colorful uniforms. Amina's singer machine hummed. Her feet pumped the pedal with simple rhythm. The room was neat. A calendar with a picture of a grazing cow hung near the door. By the window sat a woven basket of scraps she gave to children for doll clothes. Zainab came most evenings after library hours, dropping her backpack with a thud that meant, "I am home." She would wash her mother's teacup, lay out fabric, and read her notes while Amina ironed. Sometimes they ate moi and Gary, sometimes just bread and groundnuts. They laughed easily together, like people who had learned to count small joys like coins. But there was another world. That world lived in the pages of newspapers and the shine of billboards. The world of Chief Oladipo. He owned office parks, flats with marble floors, a mall with a huge glass front. The papers called him visionary. He hosted charity balls. He took pictures with governors. Yet the past, like smoke, never really left. On a Sunday evening, Zainab arrived to find Amina sitting on a low stool, the iron off, her hands in her lap. Amina's gaze was on the floor. Her lips were pressed thin. "Mama," Zainab said. Amina looked up and smiled. The smile was brave but tired. "You are back. How was the library?" "Crowded," Zainab said, then lowered her voice. "What did he say?" The day before, a black Range Rover had parked outside the shop. The driver opened the back door, and the air around the street changed temperature. Chief Oladipo stepped out, ivory babanriga flowing, brown leather sokoto hidden under its folds. Children whispered. One man on the street tugged at his shirt collar and said, "That's the chief, in a gege?" He had stood in the doorway of the small shop and looked around as if it were a museum of a people who were not his. He said he was checking on Amina's welfare, and glad the girl is doing well, and let us plan properly for the graduation. Amina had not called Zainab about it. She waited to speak face to face. Now she said, "He wants to stand on the stage with you. He wants photos. His PR people called it a soft image moment." She touched the scar on her arm without thinking. "He said it will be good for you." "For me?" Zainab's laugh was short and hard. "He means for him." Amina nodded, eyes softening. "Z, you know I do not carry hate. I carried enough pain before. I do not want you to carry it." Zainab pulled out a plastic chair and sat close. "Mama, you carried me through school with your hands and those needles. He carried only his pride." She lowered her voice. "Do you remember that night?" Amina's eyes moved to the door, as if the night might enter if she said its name. They both remembered. Zainab was 9. The house in Gabagata smelled of wet cement and lemon polish. Rain drummed on the roof. In the living room, a party for shareholders was under a white canopy with fairy lights like trapped stars. Women wore high heel, men wore glossy suits, champagne sparkled in flutes. Amina had begged her husband to let her greet the guests, just greet, but he told her to stay out of the way. Later, when the rain grew wild and the generator coughed, she saw him with a younger woman in a gold dress, laughing. Amina walked up quietly and said, "Please, we have guests." He turned, not angry, just annoyed, like a musician who missed a note. "You," he said, voice soft but with a sharp edge only she knew. "Not now." But she tried again. The young woman smiled with a mouth that was all teeth. Amina stood her ground. He took Amina's wrist, squeezed too hard. "Go inside. Keep that child away from here." The next day, in front of 2 cousins and a house staff, he shouted. He said she was ungrateful, provincial, a weight. He threw a suitcase into the corridor. "If you go with nothing." Amina had taken Zainab's small hand, a bag of clothes, and 1 envelope with her tailoring money. It was still raining. The chauffeur looked away. The gateman opened the small gate without meeting her eyes. She left. The gate closed. In Agege, a friend of a friend let them sleep on a mat. Through the years, Amina sewed until her knuckles ached and her eyes burned soft. Zainab read by window light and by candlelight. She saw her mother cry just once, with her face turned to the wall. After that, Zainab promised herself something. No one would write her mother's name in small letters again. Now, as graduation approached, the world tried to sweep the old dust under a new rug. A message came from the chief's PR manager, Tega, a tall woman with a sharp bob, red lipstick, and a voice like polished wood. "We'll have a small stage moment," Tega said over the phone when Zainab, out of respect, picked up. "A father standing by his daughter. It will trend beautifully. Your mother can come, of course, but we need the family picture to be clean." "Clean?" Zainab repeated. You know, simple. No distractions. Tega's tone smiled while her words slapped. Wear neutral colors. The chief will organize your shoes. Designers want to gift. When Zainab ended the call, her cheeks felt hot. She stood for a long time, looking at the screen as if it were a window that showed a wrong world. She went to the shop and told her mother everything. Amina listened with hands folded. Z, she said finally, forgive is not forget, but bitterness is a chain. We have lived chained before. I will not tie you again. What do you want me to do, Mama? Do what lets you sleep. That night, Zainab lay on a thin mattress and watched the ceiling fan make slow circles like a tired moon. She remembered her mother washing school uniforms at midnight because water came late. She remembered the scar from a hot iron that fell when Amina's hand shook during a fight she did not start. She remembered her own small hand learning to thread a needle so that her mother could rest 10 extra minutes. Do what lets you sleep. She closed her eyes and saw the stage. She saw the ivory agbada. She saw a photo taken, shared, liked. She saw comments, goals, power family. She tasted something bitter at the back of her tongue. In the morning, she made a plan. First, she requested to give a 30-second gratitude note when her name would be called. The faculty head, Professor Ifeanyi Okoye, a tall man with silver hair and calm eyes behind thin glasses, agreed after she told him she wanted to thank her mother who had sacrificed. Keep it respectful, he said. We celebrate, not shame. Zainab nodded. Respect was not a costume she wore for strangers. It lived inside her. Second, she told her mother to wear her best ankara, the lilac gel they had saved for one day and those gray flats that still held a shine. You will sit where you can see me, Zainab said, hands on Amina's shoulders. I want your face to be the first thing my eyes find. Third, she did something bold. She messaged someone she had not spoken to in years. Uncle Yomi, her mother's older cousin, a quiet man with a careful smile who once slipped Zainab a brown envelope after WEC and said, 4 books. Don't tell your mother. He had been chased away from the Bagada house by security back then. He knew the story like a song. Uncle, she wrote, please come to my graduation. Sit at the back. If I point to you, come forward. He replied with a single line, I will be there. On graduation morning, Lagos woke up early. The lagoon took color from the sky. The campus filled with drums, rappers, suits, and laughter that sounded like plates clinking. Zainab's friend Chimdi, 23, short afro, square glasses, slim kente stole over his gown, found her near the student line. Z, are you ready? He asked, chest heaving a little from running. Yes, she said. Do you want company later, after the photos? Zainab smiled. Stay close. Down front, in the shade of a banner that read, Congratulations, Class of Danets, Amina sat with Mama Kafayat, a plump auntie with soft cheeks and a laugh that could water dry plants. Amina had chosen her simplest gold necklace. She kept touching her jewel, smoothing it like a mother calming a child's fever. She did not look left or right. She prayed under her breath, not for victory, for peace. On the other side, the VIP row shone like polished stone. Chief Oladipo sat with business partners and an old schoolmate who now chaired a bank. Tega stood at the aisle, phone in hand, nodding at the cameraman. She wore a red sheath dress and black heels that clicked like small hammers. The MC started. Names rolled. Songs rose and fell. At last, Miss Zainab Adeyemi, first-class honors. The applause was warm and real. Cheering erupted from the students' section. Chimdi whistled. Amina covered her mouth to hold in a cry that wanted to fly. Zainab stepped onto the stage. She received her certificate with both hands. Professor Okoye smiled, whispered, "Well done," and moved aside for her 30 seconds. She did not rush. She breathed once, twice. She found her mother's face and rested her eyes there like a bird on the safest branch. "Good afternoon," she began. I thank God. I thank my teachers. I thank my mother who sewed my uniform when we had no light and woke before the sun so my books would be dry. I thank every person who gave me coins of kindness. Because of you, I am standing. The crowd hummed with the soft sound of approval. The MC nodded. Professor Okoye adjusted his glasses. Then came the family photo call. Tega lifted her phone higher. The VIPs sat up. The cameraman stepped into his crouch. The chief rose. Zainab watched him walk, the ivory of his clothes glowing under the noon sun. He climbed the steps. The audience waited for the pretty picture, a story told in one frame about a powerful father and a brilliant child. Zainab took a step back. She felt her own heartbeat knock like a fist on a locked door. She reached for the mic. Good afternoon, she said again. With respect to this school and to all parents here, I cannot stand next to this man. It was like someone unplugged the stadium. The sound left the air. She continued, words even. When I was a child, my mother and I left our home in the rain, with one bag and a promise to each other. He pushed us out with words that do not leave. He mocked her pain. So, today I will honor the person who kept me alive. I choose who stands by me. The chief's face crumpled. Not a staged face, not a PR face, a buried boy's face. Tears came quick, surprising even him. Hands, those big hands that had signed so many contracts, covered his eyes. He shook. A sound tore from him, old and ugly and true. Somewhere in the middle rows, someone whispered, "Ha!" Another person, softer, said, "God is watching." A few clapped, a few hissed. Most simply stared at the breaking of a picture they had come ready to post. Tega moved toward the stage, mouth tight. Security hesitated. Professor Okoye looked like a man balancing a glass bowl on his head during a storm. He did not move. He let the student finish what she had started, trusting that respect was still in the room. Zainab lifted her hand. Her finger pointed, not at her mother, who was already sorrow-soft and bright-strong, not at the crying man in ivory whose empire could not hold his tears, not at the MC or the dean. She pointed past the front rows, past the canopies, past the grand tents of power. She pointed toward the back bench where elders liked to sit under shade, where the noise was softer, where those who had little money but large hearts watched quietly. Please, she said into the mic, voice steady, the man who never left when others turned their backs. Come. An older man rose slowly. Uncle Yomi, 62, dark chocolate skin, close-cut gray hair, plain blue caftan, brown sandals, a worn walking stick polished by years of use. His eyes were wet, but bright. He began to make his way to the aisle, each step a careful note in a long song. Cameras swung, people leaned, whispers grew. The chief dropped his hands and followed the line of her finger. He squinted, confused. Then his mouth parted as if he had seen a ghost, because it was not just Uncle Yomi walking forward. Beside the elder, another man stood, tall and thin, with a familiar jaw and an old scar near the eyebrow. He wore a simple charcoal suit. He had been hidden in the crowd until now. He looked like a memory that refused to stay small. Zainab's voice did not shake. This is the person I will call father today, she said. And this other man. He is here to say what my mother never said. The stadium held its breath. Even the birds seemed to pause on the electric wires. The tall man in charcoal reached the steps. He placed one foot on the first riser, then stopped, eyes fixed on the chief. A sound came from the speakers. First a low buzz, then a click, then a voice. Not live, a recording. A man's voice, younger but recognizable, the vowels sharp with anger. If you leave this house, you leave with nothing. Do you hear me? Nothing. The crowd gasped. The recording continued, tinny but clear. And that child, she will come back to me when I decide. You are nobody without my name. The chief's knees seemed to empty. He reached for the rail and missed. Security moved. Too late, too slow, too unsure. Zainab lifted the microphone, looking right at him. Her eyes were wet but cold. "Who said those words?" she asked. The recording clicked off. Silence. Lagos-wide silence. And before anyone could speak again, the tall man in the charcoal suit took the next step up and said, in a voice the chief knew far too well, "Brother, it is time. If this story gripped you, tap like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from and whether you think Zainab did the right thing on that stage. Your support helps us bring more rich African folktales to life." The stadium was no longer just a graduation ground. It had become a courtroom, a theater, and a village square all at once. Hundreds of eyes stayed fixed on the stage, as if time itself had stopped moving. The man in the charcoal suit stood still, his chest rising and falling like drums before a storm. His name was Babatunde Adeyemi, 58 years old, older brother to Chief Oladipo. He had the same strong jawline, but life had carved deeper lines into his ebony face. His hair was sprinkled gray, his hands long and veined like the roots of an old tree. For years, people whispered that Oladipo had cut off his elder brother after a bitter quarrel over inheritance. Few knew details. Fewer still had seen Babatunde since. But here he was, on this day, in this place, called not by the chief, but by the chief's own daughter. "Brother," Babatunde repeated into the heavy silence, his voice low but firm. "It is time." The words sliced through the air. Oladipo wiped his face with the edge of his agbada sleeve, his tears staining the ivory fabric like small wounds. His mouth moved, but no sound came. He looked like a king stripped of his crown in the market square. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some students craned their necks, phones lifted higher to capture the drama. Aunties clutched their wrappers tighter. One woman whispered loudly, "Jesu, are they bringing family secrets here?" But Zainab stood steady. Her hands held the microphone as though it were a staff of truth. She turned her eyes, first to her uncle, then to the audience. "Years back, when my mother was cast out, people thought it was only a quarrel of husband and wife," she said, her voice echoing through the speakers. But what they did not know was that more voices tried to speak. My uncle tried to protect her. He tried to protect me. For this, he was chased away, insulted, and silenced. Her words struck like a bell. Oladipo lowered his head. He had built towers, yet in that moment he could not stand taller than his own shame. Babatunde took another step onto the stage, his walking stick tapping the wood. He pointed at his younger brother. "You told the world I was jealous. You told them I was greedy, that I wanted your wealth. But today," he spread his hand toward Zainab, "this child's courage has broken your mask. You can hide no longer." The crowd murmured. Some clapped softly. Some shook their heads. Tega, the PR manager, rushed toward the steps, heels clacking like hammers. "Stop this," she hissed. "This is a graduation ceremony, not a—" But Professor Okoye stretched out his hand to block her path. His usually calm eyes burned with authority. "This is the truth of a student," he said, "and truth has its place here." Zainab's mother, Amina, stood from her seat, her lilac jewel glowing in the sun. She clutched the edge of her wrapper, trembling but proud. Tears rolled down her cheeks, not from shame, but from a release she had carried for too long. The chief lifted his head slowly. His lips trembled, his voice cracked. "Zainab," he began, his hands shaking. "Daughter, please." But she held up her hand. "Do not call me with the same mouth that cursed my mother," she said sharply. The crowd erupted. Some shouted, "Yes!" Others muttered, "Ah, too harsh!" The tension grew like thunderclouds over the lagoon. Babatunde's voice boomed again. "Brother, you see now? Your riches could not silence the cries of the poor. Even your agbada cannot cover the wounds you caused. The child you thought would dance for your pride has chosen her truth instead. Oladipo staggered back a step, his tears now uncontrollable. He looked smaller than his Agbada, smaller than his reputation, smaller even than the chair waiting for him at the VIP section. Zainab gripped the mic tighter. Today, before God and before this crowd, I honor my mother. I honor the man who stood for us when no one else did. They will take this photo, yes, but it will not be with you, sir. It will be with them. The stadium erupted in shouts, claps, and murmurs. Half the crowd was in awe, half in shock. Uncle Yomi finally reached the stage, placing his hand gently on Zainab's shoulder. His old palm shook, but his smile was steady. The cameraman, trembling, raised his camera as if unsure what story he was meant to capture now. And then, just when the scene seemed to settle, a loud voice boomed from the far left of the audience. Enough of this shame. Must we disgrace a man of honor in public? All heads turned. Standing tall, with a gold staff in his hand, was Chief Ogunlana, one of Oladipo's closest allies and business partners. His agbada was emerald green, his cap sharp, his face carried fury. He walked toward the stage, bodyguards trailing behind. Who dares humiliate a benefactor of this community? He thundered. This is not justice, this is rebellion. The crowd gasped again. Phones swung toward the new drama. Zainab's lips parted. Uncle Babatundi's grip on his stick tightened. Amina's heart raced in her chest. Because Chief Ogunlana was not only Oladipo's business partner, he was the very man who years ago had witnessed the night Amina was cast out and said nothing. And now he was ready to defend his friend with fire. Comment below with your thoughts, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story so more people can hear these powerful folktales. The courtyard turned into a furnace of voices. Some clapped for Zainab's courage, some shook their heads at her boldness, and others muttered, "This is not how things are done." But when Chief Ogunlana rose from his seat and strode forward, all noise hushed. The emerald green agbada swept the floor as he walked, his gold staff gleaming under the noon sun. His face was stern, his eyes burning with authority. He was in his early 60s, skin deep ebony, a frame still broad despite his age. He had been Oladipo's partner in many land deals, housing estates, and even political fundraisers. People said together they were the two lions of Lagos. Now, one lion was wounded on stage, his tears staining his ivory robe. The other came roaring. "Is this what our children are learning?" Chief Ogunlana's voice boomed across the speakers as he seized the microphone from the MC. To shame their fathers in public? To spit on the hands that raised them? The crowd erupted in murmurs. Some nodded, some hissed. Zainab's chest rose, but her voice stayed steady. "Sir, with all due respect, the hands that raised me were not his. They were my mother's hands, scarred, blistered, yet steady." The crowd gasped. Phones zoomed closer. Ogunlana slammed the staff on the wooden floor. The sound echoed like thunder. "Enough! This is not a marketplace for gossip. This is a graduation. Young girls, step back. Show respect to your elders." He turned to the audience, gesturing toward Oladipo. "This man, my friend, my brother, has built homes for hundreds. He has sponsored schools. He has given scholarships. How dare we let his daughter drag him like rags in public?" The stadium shook with divided reactions. Some shouted, "True." Others murmured, "But charity begins at home." Oladipo himself, head still bowed, said nothing. His tears were his only language. Uncle Babatunde raised his walking stick. His voice, though not as loud, carried weight. "Chief Ogunlana, you know the truth. You were there the night my brother cast Amina into the rain. You saw her with the child, did you not?" The question hung in the air like smoke. For the first time, Ogunlana's face flickered. His jaw tightened. His grip on the gold staff shifted. The crowd leaned forward, hungry. "I do not recall the details," he said slowly. "Old matters are not for public ground." But Amina rose from her seat in the audience, Her body trembled, yet her eyes blazed like coals. She climbed the stage steps one by one, her lilac jowl glowing in the sun. When she reached the mic, her voice cut through the noise. "You recall nothing? Then let me remind you." She raised her left arm, showing the scar across her forearm. This mark was from that night. I begged him, I begged them, but they turned their faces. My child cried in the rain. I sewed clothes with borrowed thread just to buy Gary. And you, she pointed at Ogunlana, you were drinking wine in my parlor while he crushed me with words. Do you recall now? The crowd exploded. Some women cried openly, men shifted uncomfortably. Students shook their heads in disbelief. Ogunlana's face darkened. Woman, you exaggerate. You twist stories like cloth. But before he could say more, a voice shouted from the back, "She speaks truth. We saw it." All heads turned. A group of older women, wrappers tied tightly around their waists, were pushing forward from the back row. They were market women, mothers, and neighbors from Agege who had watched Amina struggle through the years. One of them, Mama Sadie with gray hair tied in a scarf, pointed a trembling finger. "We saw you, Chief," she cried. "We saw you drive past when she carried her child on her back, barefoot in the rain. You turned your eyes." The stadium broke into chaos. Shouts, claps, ululations. Cameras clicked furiously. Zainab held the mic tight, her voice firm despite the storm. "You can silence one woman. You can silence one man. But you cannot silence a village. Today the truth has walked to this stage." Ogunlana's staff trembled in his hand. Sweat ran down his face despite the breeze. For the first time, his authority faltered. He looked at Oladipo, hoping for support. But Oladipo sat hunched, drowning in his own tears. "Brother," Babatunde said again, his voice softer now. "Your empire is shaking not because of enemies, but because of the truth you buried." Then he turned to the crowd. Should this girl honor falsehood or should she honor sacrifice? The roar of voices answered, "Sacrifice." Zainab stepped forward. Her voice rang with clarity. "Then let the world see. Today I stand not with power, but with pain that turned into strength. Mama, Uncle, please come beside me." Amina reached her daughter. Uncle Yomi placed his hand on her other shoulder. Babatunde stood tall with his walking stick beside them. Together, they formed a picture no camera could distort. The photographer, trembling, lifted his lens. But just before he could click, a new figure stormed onto the stage. This one was younger, sharp-suited, with clean-shaven jaw and eyes like fire. His name was Kunle Adeyemi, Oladipo's son from another woman, and with his arrival, another secret was about to explode. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to keep following this powerful story. The audience, already shaken, turned as one when Kunle Adeyemi stormed onto the stage. The young man's footsteps echoed against the wooden platform like the opening beats of a drum battle. Kunle was 25, tall and lean, with the same sharp cheekbones as Oladipo but the restless energy of youth. His skin glistened under the sun, his haircut a clean fade, his gray designer suit tailored to perfection. He was the son Oladipo had paraded at business functions, the child he raised openly after discarding Zainab and her mother. Gasps rippled through the courtyard. Some whispered, "So he has another child?" Others murmured, "That is the boy we see in magazines." Kunle grabbed the microphone with shaking hands. His jaw was tight, his eyes fixed on his father. "Enough!" he shouted. "You all stand here to condemn him. But you don't know the whole story. My father is not the only one with secrets. Do you think I came here to defend him? No. I came here to tell you the truth he hides even from me." The stadium froze. Oladipo's head snapped up, his face streaked with tears. "Kunle, stop!" he barked, voice breaking. But Kunle shook his head violently. "No, father, you lied to me. You said you sent her away because she was weak. You said she couldn't give you the dignity of a proper home. But I found the letters. I found the documents you locked in your study. Zainab's heart pounded. Her mother's breath caught. Even Babatunde gripped his stick tighter, sensing another storm. Kunle's voice rose, cracking. You told me you loved me, but you never told me the woman you called weak was the only one who truly loved you. And you never told me— He turned, pointing a trembling finger at Zainab. That she is my sister. The courtyard erupted into chaos. Women clutched their chests. Men shouted, some standing on their chairs. Students screamed, some recording, some too shocked to move. Zainab's eyes widened, her lips parting as if the air had been stolen from her lungs. She stared at Kunle, searching for a lie, but his face was raw, desperate, broken. Amina staggered back, her hands trembling as if the earth beneath her feet was tilting. Oladipo lunged forward, trying to snatch the microphone, but Kunle pushed him back with surprising strength. You will not silence me today, he roared. The chief's ivory agbada fluttered as he stumbled. He looked smaller, weaker, like a drowning man clutching at shadows. Kunle's voice trembled but held firm. You told me Zainab was nothing. You told me her mother was nothing. You raised me in wealth while she grew in poverty. But the truth is, you are the nothing, because what is a man with towers if his foundation is built on lies? The crowd roared. Some shouted in support. Others shook their heads at the disgrace unraveling before them. Zainab finally found her voice. You're my brother? She whispered. Kunle's eyes softened, tears welling. I didn't know until last week. I thought I was the only heir. But the letters, they said otherwise. You are the firstborn, Zainab. You are the rightful one. The weight of his words slammed into the crowd like a thunderclap. Oladipo staggered to the microphone, his tears now flowing freely. Listen to me. They are twisting this. Yes, it is true. Kunle and Zainab share my blood. But I am still their father. I did what I thought was best. I gave Kunle everything so that at least one child would not suffer. His voice cracked. Do you not see? I was a young man full of pride. I was harsh to Amina, yes, but I tried to fix it later. She refused me. She poisoned Zainab against me. Amina stepped forward, her voice trembling but fierce. You call that poison? I call it truth. If a man strikes his wife in the dark, is it poison for her to tell the child why she limps in the morning? The crowd erupted again, this time with applause from the women. Professor Okoye finally stood, his calm demeanor now edged with steel. Enough, he said. This is a graduation, not a battlefield. But since truth has chosen today to walk, let it walk fully. Chief Adeyemi, will you confess what you did? Or shall your children continue to bleed for your silence? All eyes turned to the chief. His chest rose and fell heavily, his agbada soaked with sweat and tears. His lips quivered. He looked at Zainab, then at Kunle, then at Amina. For the first time, his voice was small. Yes, I cast her out. I cursed her. I thought wealth would cover my shame. I built towers to hide the ruins of my home. And now? His body shook as sobs overtook him. Now the towers are falling. The courtyard fell silent. Even the birds circling overhead seemed to pause. Zainab, her eyes burning with tears, turned to the audience. You have heard. You have seen. Today, the truth stands taller than any skyscraper. But before anyone could breathe relief, another sound pierced the air. Sirens. 2 black SUVs rolled onto the campus, their tinted windows reflecting the sunlight. From them stepped stern-faced men in dark suits, badges glinting on their belts. The lead officer, tall and muscular with close-cropped hair, raised his voice. Chief Oladipo Adeyemi, you are under investigation for fraud, embezzlement, and illegal land acquisition. You will come with us now. The crowd gasped louder than ever. Phones swung wildly. Oladipo's face went pale. His mouth opened, but no sound came. He looked at his children, at Zainab's steady eyes, at Kunle's trembling lips, and then at his brother Babatunde, who stood like a tree unshaken by storm. The officers moved forward. Handcuffs glinted. And in that moment, Zainab had to decide. Would she let them take him without a word? Or would she speak, one last time, for the man who had both created and destroyed her world? Comment your thoughts below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story to keep following every shocking twist. The crowd had never been so silent. Even the air felt heavy, pressing down on everyone's shoulders as the officers advanced toward Chief Oladipo. The gleam of the handcuffs caught the sunlight, and in that gleam, the empire of one of Lagos's wealthiest men seemed to crumble before the eyes of all. Phones stayed raised high. This was no longer just a graduation ceremony. It was history unfolding, a drama too raw to be scripted. Zainab's chest tightened. She watched her father, once a giant in her nightmares, now a broken man trembling before strangers. She remembered the nights of hunger, the rain-soaked exits, the scars on her mother's arms. Yet, she also remembered those rare moments as a child when he had lifted her up on his lap, telling her stories of wealth and glory before cruelty buried his love. Her voice rose sharply. "Wait!" The lead officer halted, glancing at her. His face was stern, unreadable. "Yes, miss?" Zainab gripped the microphone tighter, her hands trembling but her gaze unshaken. "Before you take him, this man must face the truth, not only in court but here, in the presence of his children, his family, and his community. He must confess fully, not hide behind lawyers or money." The crowd murmured in agreement. Some clapped, some shouted, "Let him speak!" Oladipo's knees wobbled. He looked at his daughter, confusion and shame battling in his eyes. "Zainab," he croaked. "Must you humiliate me further?" Zainab's voice trembled, but she pressed on. "You humiliated yourself years ago when you broke our home. You humiliated us when you chose pride over love. Today, you will tell the truth, or you will go in silence like a thief in the night." Kunle stepped forward, eyes burning with conflict. He had grown up idolizing this man, living in his wealth, enjoying privileges Zainab never had. But now, that image had shattered into shards too sharp to hold. His voice cracked. "Father, if you love me at all, if you love us, say it. Say everything. Let the world know who you really are." Oladipo's lips trembled. He shook his head as if trying to wake from a bad dream. Then, slowly, his shoulders slumped. His booming chest seemed to cave in. He raised the microphone with shaky hands. "My name is Chief Oladipo Adeyemi. I am guilty." The words sliced the air. "I built towers with stolen stones. I signed papers that were not mine to sign. I bribed officials. I grabbed lands that belonged to widows. I silenced voices with money. And in my house," his voice cracked, "I was worse. I beat the woman who bore me a daughter. I drove her into the rain. I turned my back on the only true family I had." Gasps filled the courtyard. Mothers shook their heads. Fathers muttered, ashamed. Tears ran freely down Amina's face, but they were not tears of weakness. They were tears of release, the kind that washed away years of buried pain. Zainab closed her eyes, her heart pounding. For the first time, her father's tongue carried truth. Ugly, brutal truth. The lead officer nodded, signaling his men forward. "That is enough. Chief, you will have the chance to repeat this in court. Now you come with us." The officers grabbed his arms and clicked the cuffs around his wrists. The metallic snap echoed like a gavel. But just as they began to lead him away, Oladipo turned one last time, his tear-streaked face lifted toward the sky. "Zainab!" he cried. "Forgive me! Even if you never call me father again, forgive me!" The words stabbed her heart. For a moment, her lips parted, but no sound came. Then, from the crowd, Mama Sede, the old market woman, shouted, "Child, forgiveness is for your own peace, not his pride." All eyes returned to Zainab. She held the mic close, her voice low but steady. "Forgiveness is not given in one day. It is a journey. Today, I do not hate you. But I will not stand beside you." Her words silenced the courtyard once more. The officers dragged Oladipo toward the SUVs. The mighty chief, who once signed billion-naira contracts with a flick of his pen, now shuffled like a prisoner of his own sins. The cameras flashed, capturing every step of his fall. Zainab turned to her mother, to Kunle, to Uncle Babatunde, to Uncle Yomi. Together they stood firm, their unity stronger than any empire. But before relief could settle, another voice rang out, a deep, commanding voice from the far end of the courtyard. "Not so fast." A tall man in a navy blue agbada, flanked by uniformed policemen, walked forward. His face was dark and stern, his eyes sharp as blades. The crowd gasped as they recognized him. It was Honorable Minister Adigan, a powerful politician and longtime ally of Oladipo. Rumors swirled that he too was involved in shady land deals. The minister pointed at the officers. "Release that man. He is under my protection. Do you think you can parade him like a common thief in front of the world? Not while I breathe." The courtyard erupted again. Some shouted in protest, others in fear. The lead officer stiffened but stood his ground. "Sir, we have a federal warrant. Stand aside." But Adigan's men stepped forward, their hands on their weapons. The crowd screamed. Mothers pulled children close. Students ducked under chairs. The ceremony had turned into a battlefield. Zainab's heart pounded. She looked at her mother, at her brother, at the officers caught in a standoff with the minister's guards, and she realized the fight for truth was far from over. Comment below what you think should happen next. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. The courtyard was chaos. Mothers clutched their children, students ducked behind plastic chairs, and the once jubilant graduation stage now looked like a war zone. On one side stood the federal officers, their guns holstered but their hands firm. On the other side, Minister Adigan's guards, tall and muscular, their dark shades reflecting the panic in the crowd. At the center of it all, Chief Oladipo, trembling in handcuffs, his tears drying on his cheeks. Zainab's pulse thundered in her ears. She had thought the nightmare was ending when her father confessed, but now the nightmare had grown taller, darker, wearing the agbada of a politician. Minister Adigan raised his voice again, his deep tone rolling like thunder. "Do you fools understand who I am? I said release him. This man is under my protection. Take off those cuffs before I strip you of your uniforms." Gasps filled the air. Some shouted, "Power!" Others hissed, "Corruption!" The lead officer, his jaw tight, stood his ground. "With respect, Honorable Minister, the warrant is federal. Your authority does not override the law." Adigan's lips curled. He slammed his staff into the wooden floor. "Then perhaps the law should learn who feeds it. Do you not know? Half your salaries come from men like him." The crowd erupted. Some booed, others shouted angrily. Babatunde stepped forward, his walking stick tapping against the stage. His voice, though old, carried strength. "Adigan, enough. The same hand that covered my brother's sins cannot cover him now. The people see. God sees. No agbada can hide shame when the naked truth is already dancing in the market." The market women cheered, ululating and clapping their wrappers. "Truth has spoken," they cried. Adigan sneered. "Old man, sit down before you fall down." But before he could continue, Kunle moved forward, his young frame stiff with defiance. He tore off his suit jacket and shouted into the microphone. "If you protect him, then you are guilty too. You built your empire with his stolen bricks. You bought your mansions with his blood money. But you will not bury us with your lies." The audience roared. Some students climbed onto chairs to chant, "We want justice! We want justice!" Adigan's guards shifted, their hands now resting firmly on their weapons. The tension was like a string pulled too tight, ready to snap. And then, Amina, quiet until now, stepped forward. Her lilac gel gleamed under the sun. She took the microphone from her daughter's hand, her voice calm but powerful. "Honorable Minister," she said, "you wear agbada, but your heart is naked. You cover your greed with big titles, but your soul is small. You think these children will fear your guards? No, they have lived with fear already. Fear of hunger, fear of shame, fear of men like you. Today, they fear nothing. Do what you will. But know this, the mothers of Lagos are watching, and the mothers of Lagos do not forget. The women in the crowd erupted. They began chanting, stamping their feet, clapping their hands in rhythm. Akigbe ese shori olomo. Akigbe ese shori olomo. No one tramples on the head of a mother's child. The chant grew louder, filling the courtyard, drowning even the sirens still wailing outside. The lead officer's face hardened. He raised his hand, signaling his men. They pulled their rifles, not aimed, but ready. Adigan's guards did the same. The stage was seconds away from bloodshed. Zainab's stomach twisted. She grabbed her brother's hand. She whispered fiercely, "If they shoot, Mama is here. Uncle is here. We cannot let this turn into death." But before either side could fire, a new sound rang out. Not a gunshot, not a chant. It was the tolling of the campus bell, the ancient iron bell that rang only on special occasions. Every head turned toward the belfry. An elderly man in a long white robe stood there, ringing it with all his strength. It was the chancellor of the university, a revered figure in his 80s known for his wisdom and neutrality. His voice boomed through the microphone system, calm but commanding. "Enough. This ground is not for politics. This ground is for learning, for truth, for the future. Lay down your threats, all of you, or you will turn a day of honor into a day of blood." The chanting softened. The guards hesitated. Even Adigan lowered his staff, though his face was still dark with rage. The chancellor's voice trembled with age, but not with fear. If justice must be served, let it be served properly. Let the law take its course. Let the children of this land see that truth is greater than guns. The crowd cheered, their voices rising again, not in fear, but in unity. Truth is greater than guns. Truth is greater than guns. The lead officer straightened. He gestured to his men. "We will proceed. Chief Oladipo is under custody." Adigan's jaw clenched. His eyes swept across the stage, from Zainab to Amina, from Babatunde to Kunle. "This is not over," he hissed. "You think you've won today? You have made enemies you cannot fight." With that, he turned sharply and stormed off, his guards following behind like shadows. The tension eased slightly, though fear still lingered like smoke after fire. The officers led Oladipo toward the SUVs again. He looked back at his daughter one last time. His lips moved, forming silent words. "I am sorry." Zainab's heart twisted. She did not answer. As the cars drove away, the courtyard erupted, not in screams this time, but in applause, chants, and tears. The students cheered Zainab's name. The market women danced. Amina stood tall, her face wet but shining. But deep in Zainab's chest, she knew this was not the end. Oladipo was gone, for now. But men like Adigan still held power. The battle for truth had only begun. Comment your thoughts below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss. The courtyard slowly emptied, but the echoes of what had happened clung to the air like smoke after a fire. Mothers pulled their children close as they whispered, "We witnessed history today." Students, still buzzing with adrenaline, replayed the scene over and over, streaming it live across social media. For Zainab, however, the noise blurred into a dull hum. Her legs trembled as if they had carried the weight of 10 lifetimes. She leaned into her mother's embrace. Amina's arms wrapped tightly around her, the warmth of sacrifice and love stronger than any shield. Kunle stood to the side, face pale, his hands still trembling. He was raised as the air, the golden sun. But now the ground under him had shifted. He looked at Zainab, his lips parting. "Sister," he said softly, the word tasting strange on his tongue. Zainab turned to him. Her eyes were swollen from unshed tears, but her voice was steady. brother. For a moment, silence bridged years of distance. Then Uncle Babatunde's walking stick tapped against the stage. "Children," he said, his voice heavy with wisdom. "Today you fought a battle of truth, but battles invite war. Do not think the minister's words were empty. He is a man of power. He will strike." The crowd had mostly dispersed, but those who remained, the market women, a few professors, and students, nodded grimly. Zainab clenched her fists. "Let him strike. We will not bend." Amina touched her daughter's arm gently. "Strength is good, my child, but wisdom must walk beside it. Pride has destroyed enough in this family. Let us move carefully." Professor Okoye approached them, adjusting his glasses. His calm voice held urgency. "You must all leave the campus immediately. The minister will not take today's disgrace lightly. I will arrange a safe car to take you home." But Kunle shook his head. "Home? Where? His allies know where I live. They know where all of us live. If Adigun wants revenge, he will not knock politely on the door." Uncle Yomi sighed, rubbing his forehead. "Then we go to the people. When power threatens us, the people are our shield. The women, the students, the neighbors, they saw the truth with their own eyes. They are our witnesses." Babatunde nodded. "Yes, but we must prepare. Because this is no longer about one man's cruelty to his wife. This has become a fight against a whole empire of lies." The group left the university under heavy escort. Cars trailed them, both friendly and unfriendly eyes watching. Zainab could feel the tension thick in the air, like rain clouds gathering before a storm. That evening, back in Agege, their small home was crowded. Market women filled the compound, singing songs of defiance. Students streamed in, offering to guard the house through the night. Social media buzzed with hashtags: "Truth on stage," "Justice for Amina," "Zainab speaks." Inside the room, the family gathered around a wooden table lit by a dim lantern. Amina brewed hot tea, though her hands trembled. Kunle paced restlessly, pulling at his collar. Finally, he stopped and faced Zainab. "Sister, do you trust me?" Zainab frowned. "Why ask that now?" "Because I know things," Kunle said, his voice dropping low. "Father didn't only build towers on stolen land. He stored documents, contracts, bribes, names of every politician who took his money. And Adigun is at the top of that list." The room froze. "You've seen them?" Babatunde asked. Kunle nodded. "Yes. I found them by accident in his study, hidden in a safe behind the portrait of our grandfather. I didn't understand everything at first. But when the investigators came for him, I realized those papers are dangerous. If they fall into the wrong hands, we're finished, but if we hold them—" He trailed off, eyes meeting Zainab's. "We control the game." Amina's face darkened. "Dangerous talk, Kunle. Power is not a toy. Many have died holding secrets like that." But Zainab leaned forward, her voice sharp. "Where are the documents now?" Kunle hesitated, then whispered. "In a small bag, hidden at my apartment. But if Adigun suspects, he will search. We must get them tonight." A hush fell over the room. The market women sang outside, their voices brave, but inside, fear gnawed at every heart. Uncle Yomi's voice cracked the silence. "If these documents are real, they are both your weapon and your curse. Use them, and you could bring down men like Adigun, but hold them carelessly, and you paint targets on your backs." Zainab's jaw tightened. "We cannot keep living in fear. Mama carried fear for too long. I will not." Kunle looked at her, his eyes conflicted but resolute. "Then tonight, we go together." Just then, a loud bang shook the compound. The singing outside stopped abruptly. Shouts rose, feet pounded. The family rushed to the window. Headlights blazed through the darkness. A convoy of black SUVs pulled up, dust swirling in the beams. Armed men in black stepped out, rifles slung across their shoulders. and leading them was none other than Minister Adagun himself, his emerald agbada glowing even in the dark. He raised his voice, booming across the night. "Bring me the girl! Bring me the documents! Or this compound will burn! Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so you won't miss." The night sky in Agege was torn apart by the growl of SUV engines and the blinding glare of headlights. Dust swirled like a storm as Minister Adagun's convoy blocked the narrow road. The joyful chants of the market women died on their lips. Fear replaced song. Inside the small compound, the lantern flickered. Zainab's pulse hammered in her ears. Kunle stood rigid, fists clenched. Amina whispered a prayer, her voice trembling. Uncle Babatunde leaned on his stick, but his eyes burned like fire. Adagun's voice boomed from outside, cutting through the night. "Bring me the girl! Bring me the documents, or I swear on my staff, this compound will burn tonight." Gasps rippled through the crowd of neighbors who had gathered. Mothers pulled their children close. Young men shifted nervously, some holding sticks, others stones. Zainab stepped to the window and looked out. Her heart twisted at the sight. Armed guards in black, rifles gleaming under the headlights, surrounding their home like vultures around prey. Kunle grabbed her arm. "We can't face them head on. He has guns. We have words." But Uncle Babatunde shook his head. "Words are stronger than bullets when the people echo them." He tapped his stick twice on the floor, then pushed open the door and stepped into the courtyard. "Adagun," he called, his voice carrying despite his age. "This is not your palace. This is the people's ground. If you want to touch these children, you will step over every mother, every neighbor, every witness here tonight." The market women, emboldened, surged forward. They tied their wrappers tighter, forming a wall in front of the gate. Their leader, Mama Sade, raised her hands and shouted, "If you want her, you will walk through us first." The guards hesitated. Their rifles wavered. Shooting into a crowd of unarmed mothers would be a scandal even Adagun could not bury. But Adagun's face was stone. "Step aside," he roared. "These women cannot save her. She holds what belongs to me." Zainab pushed past her uncle and stood in the doorway, her silhouette framed by the lantern light. Her voice was steady, though her knees trembled. "I hold nothing that belongs to you, Minister. What I hold belongs to the people. The truth you fear so much." The crowd erupted in murmurs. Some shouted, "Yes!" Others cheered. Phones lit up as students and neighbors streamed the confrontation live. Adagun's eyes narrowed. "Careful, girl. Truth does not shield against bullets." He raised his hand. His guards cocked their rifles. Amina gasped and pulled Zainab back, but Kunle stepped forward, fire in his eyes. "Shoot if you dare. Kill us, and tomorrow the world will see not only your corruption, but your bloodthirst. The documents are already out of your reach." Adagun froze. "What?" Kunle smirked grimly. "Yes. Before coming here, I made copies. If anything happens to us, they will be released. Bank accounts, contracts, names, all of it. Your empire will burn faster than ours." The crowd roared. Phones were lifted higher, capturing every word. Adagun's face turned dark as thunder. He looked around, realizing the trap. Cameras flashing, live streams running, every witness ready to testify. His guards shifted uncomfortably, lowering their rifles. But before relief could wash over the compound, a sudden bang shattered the tension. Not a gunshot, something heavier. The back wall of the compound trembled. Zainab spun around, shadows moved at the rear, another team of masked men slipping in through the alley. Unlike Adagun's official guards, these were mercenaries, their faces covered, their intent clear. The market women screamed as the masked men scaled the wall. Chaos erupted. Students threw stones. Mothers swung sticks. The courtyard turned into a battlefield of the powerless against the armed. Kunle grabbed Zainab's hand. "The documents. If they find them, it's over." "But they're at your apartment," Zainab cried. "Yes," Kunle panted, pulling her toward the back door. "But they don't know that. They think it's here. We must escape now, or they'll tear everything apart until they find us." Bullets cracked into the air. The mercenaries pushed through the wall, scattering the crowd. People screamed, running in every direction. Amina clutched her daughter's shoulder. "Go! Run with your brother. I will hold them as long as I can." "No, Mama." Zainab's heart broke, but Uncle Babatunde's firm hand pushed her forward. His eyes burned with resolve. "Child, listen. Sometimes survival is the only victory. Go now. We will not let them take you." Tears blurred her vision, but Zainab let Kunle pull her into the shadows of the alley. They slipped out just as the mercenaries stormed the front yard, their boots crashing against the earth. Behind them, the sounds of chaos swelled, shouts, cries, the clash of courage against cruelty. As they sprinted through the narrow streets, Kunle's voice was breathless but fierce. "We must reach my apartment before they do. Only then will we know who truly holds power, Adigun or us." But as they turned a corner, headlights blinded them once more. Another black SUV screeched to a halt, blocking their path. The door swung open, and stepping out was not Adigun. It was a familiar face, someone they thought was on their side. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to stay tuned for more captivating story. The SUV's headlights blinded them, forcing Zainab and Kunle to raise their hands against the glare. Their breaths came fast, hearts racing as the door of the black vehicle creaked open. Out stepped Professor Ifeanyi Okoye, the calm, silver-haired faculty head who had stood by Zainab on the graduation stage. His white caftan glowed faintly under the streetlights, his round glasses glinting as he looked at them. Zainab gasped. "Professor?" Kunle tensed, pulling her back. "Careful, Zainab. We don't know if he's with us or with them." Professor Okoye raised his hand gently, signaling peace. His voice, though soft, carried urgency. "Children, get in, quickly. They are closing in." Behind them, the shouts of Adigun's mercenaries echoed through the alleys. Gunshots cracked in the distance, screams carried on the night wind. Zainab hesitated. Her heart begged her to trust the professor, the man who had defended her right to speak, who had silenced Tega, who had let the truth echo on stage. But Kunle's grip tightened on her wrist. "Wait," Kunle demanded, his tone sharp. "If you are with us, prove it. Why are you here? Why risk your life?" Professor Okoye's eyes softened. "Because I have seen men like Adigun destroy too many families. My own brother disappeared because of their greed. I will not let another generation be swallowed. Get in, before it is too late." Zainab looked into his eyes, searching for deceit. She found only grief and resolve. She tugged her brother's arm. "Kunle, we have no choice." They scrambled into the SUV. The professor slammed the door, barked an order to his driver, and the vehicle roared into motion. As they sped through the streets of Lagos, Kunle finally spoke, his voice heavy. "Professor, we have something that could bring Adigun down. Documents, proof, everything." The professor's expression grew grave. "Then you carry both a shield and a curse. Protect it well, because if he does not kill you tonight, he will hunt you tomorrow." Zainab clenched her fists. "Then we expose him. We go to the press, the courts, anyone who will listen." But Okoye shook his head. "Child, Lagos does not run on truth alone. If you move carelessly, the same hands that cheer you today will bury you tomorrow. You must be strategic. You must be wise." The car swerved sharply, avoiding another convoy of black SUVs tearing down the opposite lane. The driver muttered under his breath, sweat dripping down his temple. Kunle leaned forward, voice urgent. "Then what do we do, Professor?" Okoye paused. His voice dropped low, almost a whisper. "There is someone you must meet, a man who has fought these powers longer than you've been alive. He is hidden, but his word still moves mountains. If he stands with you, then Adigun will fall." Zainab frowned. "Who is he?" The professor's lips pressed into a thin line. "His name is not spoken lightly. To most, he is a ghost. But you may call him the custodian." Kunle's eyes widened. He had heard whispers of that name in hushed corners of Lagos, an old judge who vanished years ago after exposing a minister's corruption, rumored to be alive and hiding, pulling strings where law could not. Zainab's heart pounded. And he will help us? Okoye nodded slowly. If he believes you. But be warned, he does not waste his time. If your cause is not pure, he will turn you away. Before Kunle could respond, the SUV jolted violently. Tires screeched. Gunfire rattled behind them. In the rear window, Zainab saw headlights, 2 more SUVs chasing, bullets sparking against the asphalt. Down! The professor shouted, ducking as the rear glass shattered. The driver swerved, nearly losing control. Kunle threw himself over his sister, shielding her as shards rained inside. Zainab's ears rang from the deafening shots. The professor grabbed the radio on the dashboard and barked, "Take them to the safe house." The driver nodded, swerving into a narrow dirt road that cut between warehouses. The SUVs behind them struggled to follow, their heavy frames skidding in the sand. At last, they burst into a quiet compound hidden behind rusting gates. The driver slammed them shut as the SUV screeched to a halt. Professor Okoye turned to the siblings, his glasses cracked, his caftan smeared with dust. "You will meet the custodian tomorrow. Rest tonight. Gather your courage. For after that, nothing will ever be the same." Zainab exchanged a look with Kunle. Both were bruised, shaken, but their eyes burned with the same fire. The fight had begun, and they were no longer running from it. But as Zainab lay down on the thin mattress provided in the safe house, she could not shake one thought. If the custodian held the power to end Adagun, then he also held the power to betray them. And trust was a currency more dangerous than bullets. Comment below your predictions. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. The safe house was quiet. Too quiet for a city like Lagos. No honking buses, no night market cries, just the hum of crickets and the distant bark of dogs. Zainab lay awake on the thin mattress, her mother's words echoing in her chest. Strength must walk with wisdom. Kunle sat nearby, rifling through the small bag that contained the explosive documents, contracts, bank slips, secret recordings. His eyes were restless. "If the custodian sees this, Adagun is finished," he whispered. "But what if the custodian cannot be trusted?" Zainab murmured. "Powerful men don't help without cost." Before Kunle could answer, the professor entered, his caftan freshly washed though his glasses remained cracked. He carried a lantern. "It's time," he said. The meeting they were led into a basement chamber lit by a single bulb. The air smelled of dust and age. At the far end sat a man cloaked in gray, his face partly hidden by shadow. His hair was white, his skin dark as polished ebony, his posture regal though his frame was frail. Professor Okoye bowed his head. "Honored custodian, I have brought them." The man's voice was gravelly, carrying the weight of decades. "Step forward, children of truth." Zainab and Kunle approached, their steps heavy with tension. The custodian's sharp eyes studied them. "You seek to bring down Adagun?" "Yes," Zainab said firmly. "Not just him. All the men who think they can trample families and build empires on lies. My father confessed, but his sins live on in the men he served." Kunle placed the bag on the table and opened it. Documents spilled out, evidence of fraud, land theft, bribes to ministers. The custodian's fingers brushed over them like a priest reading sacred texts. At last, he leaned back, exhaling. "You hold fire in your hands. Fire can warm, but fire can also burn the one who carries it. Are you prepared to burn?" Zainab met his gaze. Her voice did not waver. "If it brings light to others, yes." The custodian's eyes softened, and for the first time, he smiled faintly. "Then I will help you." The custodian outlined his plan. The documents would be leaked to trusted journalists, both local and international. Some would go to foreign embassies, some to opposition politicians eager to weaken Adagun. But before the plan could take root, there would be retaliation. Adagun will not go quietly, the custodian warned. He will try to destroy you before the truth reaches the world, but if you stand firm, he will fall. Kunli frowned. And our father? The custodian's face grew grim. His trial will shake this nation. He may confess further to lessen his sentence, but justice will demand its pound of flesh. Zainab's chest ached. Despite everything, part of her still longed for the father she never had, but she steadied herself. So be it. He chose his path. Just as hope began to settle, the basement door burst open. Armed men stormed in, rifles raised. At their lead, Tega, the PR manager, dressed in black, her lipstick gone but her eyes sharp with fury. You thought you could hide? She spat. You children destroyed years of careful work. Adagun wants your heads and I will deliver them myself. Chaos erupted. Gunfire cracked, ricocheting off the walls. The custodian ducked, but even in his frailty he shouted commands. Protect the documents. Kunli grabbed the bag, dragging Zainab toward the side exit. Professor Okoye shoved shelves over to block the attackers. But Tega was fast. She lunged, grabbing Zainab by the braid, yanking her back. You ruined everything! Tega screamed, raising a knife. Zainab fought back with a burst of strength. She shoved Tega hard, sending her crashing into a table of documents. Papers flew like birds into the air. Kunli kicked the knife away and dragged his sister through the side door. Behind them, shouts and gunfire filled the night. By dawn, the documents were already spreading. Journalists across Lagos posted headlines. Minister Adagun implicated in multi-billion naira scandal. Secret files reveal land theft network. From graduation stage to revolution, the voice of Zainab Adeyemi. Crowds filled the streets, chanting for justice. Market women, students, neighbors, all rose in protest. Adagun's mansion was surrounded by angry demonstrators. His guards could not contain the tide. The government, under pressure from both local and foreign eyes, had no choice. Adagun was stripped of office and placed under investigation. His allies scattered like rats. And Chief Oladipo, from his prison cell, watched it all unfold. He wept, not for his empire, but for the daughter he had lost and the daughter who had become a lion. Weeks later, at a small ceremony in Agege, Zainab stood beside her mother, her brother Kunle, Uncle Babatunde, and Uncle Yomi. The community had gathered, not in fear, but in celebration. The chancellor of the university himself came, bowing his gray head. Today we honor courage, he said. Not the courage of wealth, but the courage of truth. The crowd cheered. Zainab spoke into the microphone, her voice clear as the morning sun. This fight was never just about one family. It was about every woman cast out, every child silenced, every community trampled by pride. My father's mistakes built scars in me, but those scars have become my strength. Let us never again allow silence to protect cruelty. The applause was thunderous. Amina wept openly, holding her daughter's hand. Kunle, once lost in privilege, now stood proudly beside his sister. And somewhere in the shadows, the custodian watched, a faint smile on his lips before disappearing into the crowd like a ghost once more. Chief Oladipo's trial shook Nigeria. He was sentenced, stripped of titles, his towers sold to repay what was stolen. Yet, from prison, he sent letters of regret, of apology, of longing. Zainab read them, not with hatred, but with the distance of someone who had grown beyond pain. Minister Adagun's empire collapsed. His name became a proverb. Adagun's fall. A warning that power without honor crumbles like sand castles before the tide. And Zainab? She became a voice for truth, her story told across Africa and beyond, a symbol of a generation that refused to be silenced. The wealthy man had broken into tears when his daughter denied him publicly. But in the end, it was not just his tears. It was the tears of a nation that finally cleansed the soil for new seeds to grow. If you were moved by Zainab's courage and her mother's resilience, Click like, subscribe, and share this story so more people can hear it. Tell us in the comments what lesson you learned from this tale. Remember, truth may shake the ground, but it will always stand taller than lies.